Hello friends! We're counting down to the holidays with 12 days of Christmas drawings. The goal of this mini-series is to kickstart a daily habit of painting in Procreate in a fun, low-pressure way. So I invite you to grab your pencil, get comfy, and draw along with me. Today we're going to be painting this simple holiday wreath. Let's first create a new canvas, and I have mine set to 4,250 pixels wide by 3,200 pixels tall at 300 dpi. These are essentially the dimensions of the iPad, so the canvas should fit your screen. If you don't have enough storage on your iPad for a file this large, you can use the pre-formatted screen size canvas, which will give you the same aspect ratio, but at a smaller size and lower resolution. Here's a glimpse at my very rough sketching process. As always, I used the 6B pencil brush, and you're welcome to draw your own version of this wreath, or you can skip the drawing process altogether because I created a template for you, which you can use as a guide for the painting. There's a link in the description for the free download. And I just want to mention, with the downloads, you'll also receive a color palette, which you can import directly into Procreate. The palette includes the base colors that I'll be using, but you'll often see me incorporate other colors as well. Feel free to add to or adjust the base palette as you see fit. Although I have a sketch, I'm going to import the template so that you can see that process. So I'm just going to turn my sketch layer off, then head over to the Actions menu, tap Add, tap Insert a Photo, find the template in your camera roll, then tap to import. Go to that template layer, tap on the N, and then change that blending mode to multiply. Then reduce the opacity so the template is very transparent. Create a new layer, then drag it below the template. All of our painting layers will be added below the template layer. Now let's choose a brush. We're going to try one of the gouache brushes today, so head to that set. And this time we're going to use chocolate. We'll be using two different greens for the leaves in this painting, and we'll start with the spruce color from the palette. I've got the brush set at just 5%, and we'll start by painting the center stem. Then increase the brush size to about 10% to fill the leaves. Now this is my first time using this brush, so I'm not at all familiar with how it behaves, so we're going to be experimenting in real time here. Let me try that again. Okay, I see what's happening here. I could tell pretty quickly that this brush is very pressure sensitive. So if you apply even the slightest amount of pressure, the stroke size will change. This feature can be a bit frustrating if you're not used to it, but we can try to use it to our advantage when painting the leaves by pressing down more firmly to make the line wider, then lifting up slightly to make the line smaller. Now, if you find that a bit too challenging, you can always drop the brush size down to outline the shape first, then fill with a few paint strokes. You'll notice that this brush is also semi-transparent. The color will shift wherever you have overlapping strokes. And I don't mind that value shifting for this particular painting, but if you don't like that look, you may need to add more layers of paint to make the color more solid. We've got quite a few leaves to paint here, so the good news is that you'll get lots of practice using this brush and figuring out how to make it work for you. Okay, these two leaves overlap, so let's leave the one in the background blank for now, and we'll come back and paint that in a different color later. Don't forget to drop the brush size down when you're painting the stems. And try to keep a light and consistent pressure so the stroke size doesn't shift too much. So just continue painting those leaves, experimenting with your technique, how much pressure you use, and how you control the brush. Don't forget to zoom out every once in a while to see how things are coming together. When you're done with one section, turn off the template layer so you can check the shape of your leaves and see if there are any areas you need to adjust or clean up. Turn the template back on And in this section, there are a couple more of those overlapping leaves. So again, we can leave the one in the background blank for now and continue to use the spruce green for all the others. This kind of repetitive task is perfect for turning on some music or an audiobook and just getting lost in the creative process. As we go along, I'm getting more comfortable with this brush and I'm finding it easier to control now. Here I'm starting with a light touch at the top where I need the stroke to be narrow, then I increased the pressure as the shape widens. For this one, I started with a light stroke, increased the pressure, then eased up again towards the end. Each leaf will give you an opportunity to try something a little different. And once you get the hang of it, this brush is actually really great to paint with. Keep going until you've painted all the leaves you plan to paint in the spruce green. Now let's add that second color. Create a new layer, and we're going to drag it below the dark green leaves because many of the leaves we left blank are in the background. Let's choose the light green from the palette, and full disclosure, I adjusted this color to make it a tiny bit lighter. Now we can paint the remaining leaves following the same process we used before. Okay, I think that's looking pretty good. Now let's paint the berries. Create a new layer and drag it up so it sits at the top of the painting layers, but it's still below the template layer. Choose the red from the palette and then outline and fill all the berries. We're not worrying about the details just yet, we're just focusing on getting each one painted in the bright red. I'm not using any specific technique in terms of pressure changes or anything like that. I'm just outlining each shape and filling with color. Okay, we've got everything painted, but it's looking a little flat. So let's make this a little more interesting, starting with the dark green leaves. Go to that layer, create a new layer above it, and make the new layer a clipping mask. Choose the holly green from the palette. And what we're going to do is add a line of that darker green along one edge of each leaf. Actually, I think it'll be easier to see if I turn the template off for this. Okay, that's better. Now we can really see the shapes of those lines. This is another opportunity to make use of the pressure sensitivity on this brush. By shifting the pressure slightly, we can add some size variation to each of these strokes. Continue to do this all the way around until you're finished with the dark green leaves. And don't be afraid to experiment with the line shapes. You can make some more curvy and others more straight. All right, I think that really helped. Now let's do the same for the other leaves. Go to the layer with the light green leaves, create a new layer above it, and make that new layer a clipping mask. Then choose a darker green than what you used for the leaves. I chose the bright green from the palette, and we're going to follow the same process as before where we add that darker color to one edge of each leaf. It's looking pretty good. The next task is to add shading to create some separation between the berries. So go to the berries layer, and once again, we're going to create a new layer above it and make it a clipping mask. Then choose the deep red from the palette. Actually, I'm going to turn the template layer back on for this. In an area like this where we have a group of berries, first determine which one is at the bottom of the cluster. And that's where you're going to add your first shadow. You can start with 2 lines along the edge of the foreground berries. And then I like to add a few curves to make the shape slightly irregular. That just looks a little more natural. Then here, this berry is on top of this one, so we can add a shadow here as well. For the single berries, you can just add a line along one edge, just like we did with the leaves. Now in this case, this berry is supposed to be partially hidden by this leaf, so let's fix that. Go to the eraser tool and make sure it's also set to chocolate. Then go back to the berries layer and erase the part of the berry that should be hidden. Now we can go back to the clipping mask layer with the berry shadows, make sure the deep red is still selected, and switch back to the chocolate brush. Then continue adding those shadows in the appropriate areas. As you continue working on these, remember that you need to switch to the berries layer to erase the areas that need to be hidden behind the leaves, then go back to the clipping mask layer so that you can add the shadows. Continue along until all the berries are done. Now let's add a few highlights. Create a new layer, then choose a color that's lighter than the red. I'm going to use this peach, which is just an altered version of the coral from the palette. Make the brush size pretty small. This is about 4%. And you're just going to add a little curved stroke to each berry. Again, you can experiment with how you use the brush to create marks of different shapes and sizes. Finally, we can add these little dots and specks around the wreath. This part is optional, so you're welcome to skip it if you prefer. Let's create one last layer, choose the coral from the palette, and you're just going to make little marks in different sizes. With a brush like this that's very pressure sensitive, you can tap lightly to make a smaller dot or press down harder to make a larger mark. And with that, we've finished our 5th painting of the series. If you'd like to try drawing a holiday wreath in a different style, you can watch this tutorial where I walk you through the full process from sketch to final, and we use the symmetry tool to simplify the process. I'll link to this video in the corner and in the description below. I hope you had fun with this process, and I hope you'll join me for all 12 days of this holiday painting practice. There's a link in the description for where you can download the free drawing templates and get a peek at all the drawings we'll be creating for the next 12 days. I've also added a link to the 12 Days of Christmas Drawings playlist so you can easily find all the content in this series. If you enjoyed this video, I'd love if you'd give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.